Hey folks, welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. They have been around taking care of us for a long time, and they can take care of you too. OTR is a service that helps you fight tickets. You get a ticket, it's bullshit. Get that ticket, call OTR. Don't call. Go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app and use code TSTPOD. Off the Record will set you up with a qualified attorney in the jurisdiction where you got the ticket. Fight that ticket for you. You don't have to do anything else. If it's court, they'll go to court. If it's meeting with the prosecutor, they do all of that. And if they don't get those points off of your record, you get your money back. You don't pay. I've used them multiple times. Incredible success. I love OTR. I tell everybody about them, and now I'm telling you. So offtherecord.com/TST or use code TST10 on the Off the Record app for iOS and Android. That'll get you 10% off all services with OTR in perpetuity, and we love them, so you should use them. All right, on today's episode, we've got Gord Duff calling in. Gord is the global head of auctions for RM. And you probably know RM. They're a very high-end auction company. It's not peer-to-peer like the online auctions. These are the fancy ones. There's a man with a gavel. It's where really, really rich people sell their stuff. And we're talking about the auction market, the state of the market at this high end. We've seen a recent correction after the, quote, post-pandemic auction boom of sort of regular cars. But what's happening with the LaFerraris? What's happening with the GTOs? Are the rich staying rich? These are very important questions. Gord is here to answer them, as well as some of your questions. It's Gord Duff from RM Auctions on the Smoking Tire Podcast. All right, this is going to be a good one. You know, we had our YouTube analyst come on, not come on the show, but come in the office and tell us what's a big hit. What can we do on the podcast to get everybody to care about what we're talking about? And the first thing he said was talk about money. That's the first thing you got to do. Or he said talk shit about people. That was the other one, but we don't want to do that. I don't want to be the show who talks shit about people. But today, we're going to take advice for step one, and we're going to talk about money, specifically money spent on cars. And that's why Gord Duff from RM Auctions is calling in. Where are you calling from, Gord?
Canada.
Canada?
Yeah.
I'm a big Canada fan, extremely pro-Canada. Mainly for the 15-year import law rather than the 25-year import law. You guys really had a bump on us there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today. And RM just had a big show in Paris, Retromobile. You've got another big one coming up in Miami shortly. And so we thought it would be a good time to catch up and talk about the state of the top of the market, the high-end collector car auctions. So last few years have been pretty crazy with auctions, and I want to talk about how that relates to this year. But first off, you have a really cool job, so give us the story about how you end up with this really cool job. This seems like Car Guy fantasy camp kind of gig.
I mean, I've been with the company for 25 years. I started when I was 18 years old, started cleaning cars, pushing stuff around the shop, and I got in at a time when we were just starting to get big into the auction business and the company was starting to expand, and it just kind of took off from there. I was lucky and kept my head down and kind of did whatever I was told to do. And eventually I transported cars. I used to drive our transport truck across the country, got into car sales, got into consigning cars, knew a lot of our clientele from delivering and picking up cars from them, and just kind of kept growing with the company into where I am now, managing. So
it's really a sort of being there consistently, keeping your face familiar, and just working the sort of incremental steps over a very long period of time.
Yeah, you got to put a lot of hours in, right? It's kind of like that 10,000 hour rule, right? To do anything successfully, you got to just work your ass off at it. And if you like it, you don't, it doesn't seem like work, and it just kind of happened over time. It wasn't anything that I thought, okay, I want to do this next, that next. It just continued to develop to the point of kind of, running the place.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's great. We hear those types of stories quite a bit from someone who either it was like sweeping the floors or cleaning cars, and now they are running the place. And I don't know if I'm not trying to be like these kids today or anything like that, but like when you come on, when you still look like a young man, so to say that you've been doing something for 25 years, it doesn't seem like it's been as long as it probably has.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that. I come from a super small town. It just happened to be where RM was founded, so that was luck. And I never expected to travel all over the US, let alone all over Europe, to all the places I've been, and doing it just checking out cars, selling cars, consigning cars. It's pretty cool, but I didn't expect to be a world traveler at the same time either.
Yeah. What town was that?
The address for our shop's Blenheim, Ontario. It's Chatham. So it's 1 hour from Detroit, 3 hours from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
But it's just a little 60,000 person town, and started restoring cars, and that developed into the buying and selling and into the auction side of the business, and we just continued to grow out.
It's funny. It's never occurred to me that RM is a Canadian company. I don't know why. I've never put that together. I mean, it's a global company at this point. The auctions are all over the world, but I just never thought about it.
Yeah, we got a restoration shop still that's in Chatham that employs 40 craftsmen. We've won Best of Show at Pebble Beach 8 times in the last 20 something years. We won this past year in 23. We won in 22. So we restore some of the world's greatest cars, as well as sell them.
It's I was surprised at how many of the Pebble Beach, the ones that drive across the block at the end, it says restored by RM. There's a lot. It's a big percentage of the stuff it's like a double-digit percentage of the stuff that's on the lawn every year is like restored by RM. It's a lot of cars. Yeah.
We're always doing a couple, but it takes a super special car in order to win its class or have a shot at winning Best of Show. And fortunate for us and our eye for going out and having the clientele that want us to restore those cars for them. It's worked out really well. It's kind of goes hand in hand with the auction business, right?
Yeah, and those. I mean, is there any way to get if someone gets a car, they come to RM, they have you restore the car for, is that a good investment for the client? I mean, and I'm not like, is that a passion project, or is there a business to be made or at least justified from the client side of having even an amazing car like a pre-war Bugatti or something? Is there a way to get your money back out of that? Or once you go through that process, are you just so far into it that it's just pure passion?
No, it's a mix. It can definitely be worthwhile to a car. To a lot of the cars that we do full restorations on, I mean, there's 7-figure cars coming in the door.
Yeah.
And, there's 7-figure restorations as well. But going out the other side, many of them are worth what you have in it, could be worth more. Sometimes the clients, it's not about that. It is about the passion. It is about, I want to go show this car. I want to have a shot at, winning at Pebble Beach, that kind of stuff. So, there's a reason we're restoring, pre-war European American classics for the most part, and not 57 Thunderbirds. It cost a lot of money to make one of those perfect, and it's worth a little bit more than what you would have paid for it before it came into our shop. So
yeah,
that's also why we transitioned out and started doing Packards and Duesenbergs and Bugattis and 540K special roadsters, where it's okay to put a 7-figure amount into a restoration on a car that's already worth a considerable amount. But yeah,
now that preservation is really a thing, are people starting to question whether the restoration is worthwhile, or is it that you're restoring a car that is non-original or it's non-preservation? It was restored in the 80s, and you're now restoring it again, where you can do that, and it's outside of what would qualify for preservation class to begin with.
For the most part, the cars we're restoring have already had a restoration, whether it was in the 60s or the 80s. I can think of a couple cars that were like great things, but the client that owned the car was like, I want it perfect. I want it looking brand new. Okay, we'll do it. But, there's a certain type of people that like preservation versus, shiny and new.
Yeah.
I like preservation. I like originality of cars, but, our business has us restoring them. But we have done mechanical restorations on all original cars where we've completely restored everything, but we haven't polished a piece of it. We haven't painted a part on it. We've pulled it apart, rebuilt it, put it back together, and left it completely original. So I like those projects when they come into the shop as well.
When did I only really recall preservation class in the last 10, 15 years. It really was not a thing before that. Is that just in my head, or is that real?
No, I think you're accurate. I don't know when Pebble, the first year they had a preservation class, but I'm going to say it was probably within the last 15 years. I
feel like I was there. Like, I feel like I was at Pebble maybe late 2000s, 08, 09, something like that. The first year. I feel like it was a big deal when I was there. Zach, are you looking that up?
Yeah.
In the first year they had preservation class? I feel like I was there. I don't know. I like a preservation car. I think that's a very cool thing. It's like a pretty boss move. I'm not anti-restoration at all, and to see a beautiful restoration is a great thing. But like, to see a preservation car is a pretty boss thing.
Since 2001.
2001, I was not there.
Oh, okay. It's longer ago than I thought.
Yeah, relatively recent in the grand scheme of the Pebble Beach Concourse, but yeah, okay, all right, good. Okay, so. What is, these sort of the pre-war stuff, it seems like that stuff's been being shown at Pebble Beach as long as there's been a Pebble Beach. You go look at Pebble Beach stuff from the 50s, and they had cars from the 30s. And you look at Pebble Beach in the 60s, and they had cars from the 30s. And they're adding some new classes. There was a Countach on the lawn, and some 80s stuff this year. But do you think that's what that type of concours is going to be focused on forever? Is it going to be that brass era and pre-war stuff? That's going to be the big time there forever?
I mean, if you look back, it's probably evolved a lot in the last 20 years. We haven't realized they did a Countach class this year. They had a McLaren F1 there. I forget what class it was in.
Well, that was the 60th anniversary of McLaren class. So those were all
okay.
McLarens.
Right.
Yeah. So they did have the F1 LM, and then they had a regular road car also, along with a bunch of like F1 cars. I was there when they started Senna's car. It was pretty rad. It was pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
They had 65 Shelbys one year. They did a class for an anniversary. But when you walk into Pebble, they have all the new concept cars, the Lamborghinis, the Bugattis. You got Ferrari, that's a major sponsor there, that has a incredible display setup where they're doing new car launches now. Mercedes-Benz is like, those are things that weren't happening 20, 30 years ago. And I think you're always going to see the 1910 brass car or the 30 stuff, but over time, I do believe it's going to evolve into newer stuff. There's been one Ferrari that's won Best of Show at Pebble Beach. I mean, at some point in the near future, there's going to be another incredible post-war sports car that ends up, winning again. Mm-hmm. So, there'll always be the old stuff, but I think you will start seeing some newer classes over the years.
Do you find that young people, Gen Xers, people in their 30s and 40s, that's mostly millennials, but millennials, Gen X, are interested in brass era? Or do you think that as the older generation passes on, those cars will fade in popularity?
People have been saying that for the last 50 years. I mean, it's I think the 40-year-old or 30-year-old today, when they're 60, their tastes are going to change. That's they'll go to more shows. They'll start getting bored with, I don't know, young timer BMWs they're into, and they're like, oh, I want to collect a, I don't know, vintage Lamborghini. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's an Auburn. Okay, I like those. Like your clothes change over the course of your life, right?
Yeah.
The furniture in your house. So I think, your tastes in cars will change and you'll start to appreciate different things or things that, you know, new friends you develop over your life decide to get into, or just whatever. You're kind of like, okay, I've enjoyed my, Ferrari supercars. I want to drive something that has a better sound to it and I get to shift gears, and then you kind of just start falling into older stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll always be around. A brass car is 100 and whatever 25 years old, and there's still people that like them, and there's still a lot of them special things bringing giant money.
Yeah.
So there's still people that want to collect that stuff, and it'll continue. The great stuff will always do well, but people still like Model Ts. There's still people collecting,
My friend Larry just bought a
Ford
Model
Model
T. He's
Ts.
my age. He's 41. He was so excited. A Model T got pulled out of a barn for him to like literally detail, and he was like, "I think I'm gonna buy this." It was like I don't know, it was like $10,000 or something, and he's like so stoked on his Model T. It's
Yeah.
it's very engaging. It's you have a lot to do at a very low speed in a Model T. Yeah.
And they've been 10 grand for probably 40 years, and they'll probably always, they'll always be a value to it. Right. But that's where those are going to be. But people still like them.
Yeah,
So
I get it. I've driven one. They're fun. They're a totally unique driving experience. Yeah, and we're going to Zach and I are going to the Audrain Museum's veteran run, which is cars pre 1907 in Newport, Rhode Island in April, and we're going to drive a 1905 something, whatever they got. We drove a 1902 Packard a couple years ago, and it was challenging.
right.
It
Yeah.
was fun. I
You
don't
gotta
want
try
to
the
own one,
London.
but it was fun. So
You got to try the London to Brighton at some point.
yeah, I mean that's so the one in Newport is based on the same
Yep.
vibe as that, but they moved the year to 1907 instead of 1904, and mainly because the cars are basically the same. A 1904 and a 1907 is not a fundamentally different car, but because of that cutoff for London to Brighton, a car that was built in 1905, 6, or 7 is like a tenth of the price of a car that was
Yep.
built in 1904 and would qualify. So they opened it up to a more affordable entry, because in 1904 that's when they eliminated the need to have a flagger walking in front of your car. That's the point of the London to Brighton, which is a hilarious thing to think about in hindsight. So let's talk about Retromobile in Paris. It just happened. Were you there? Folks, got to take one quick break because support for the Smoking Tire is coming at you from Factor. I love Factor. They send us food every month. It's in the fridge here at WCCS where we record our show. And every time I get to that point where I work a little too long and start to panic because I'm too hungry, you know what's waiting for me in the fridge? Factor. It makes me eat on time so I don't make bad choices, eat fast food, eat bad food, and they've got these pre-prepared, chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. There's over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, and there's over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons helping make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. It takes just 2 minutes to reheat Factor's restaurant-quality meals. They're ready whenever you are. There's the snacks. There's the smoothies. I love the smoothies. The strawberry banana, that's a good one. You can discover a wide variety of easy options to fuel up throughout the day, breakfast, midday bites, etc. Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast upscale options done easily, save you from doing the dishes, save you from going to the store, save you from ordering unhealthy food with one of those meal delivery services. It's flexible. You can get as much or as little as you need by choosing 6 to 18 meals per week. Plus, you can pause or reschedule deliveries at any time. You can head over to factormeals.com/tire50 and use code TIRE50 to get 50% off. That's code TIRE50 at factormeals.com/tire50 to get 50% off. And thank you to Factor for sponsoring today's show. Let's talk about Retromobile in Paris. It just happened. Were you there?
Yes. Yeah. Went over for 3 days. We do Retromobile opens Tuesday evening and we do our sale on Wednesday. So I was over for a couple days and then came back home.
Retromobile is in my top 5 list of car things that I want to do and have not done yet. Everyone who's been just says it's the greatest. It's like SEMA with taste, basically. So you guys had a big sale. Did we learn anything from it other than the fact that someone is willing to pay $650,000 for a wind tunnel model of a Ferrari FXX, which is insane?
Well, you should see the 964 we sold at the same auction. That was another rare highlight. But the week was really good. Our auction was really strong. The market still seems, people are happy to spend money. So, it was kind of good coming out of the gate for first part of the year. And, we had a really solid sale and people come from around the world every year for Retromobile. So it's a great place to catch up with people, and we always seem to have a really good sale over there.
So it's interesting. I mean, it seems like for the auction sites here, the peer-to-peer auction sites, the Bring a Trailers, the Cars and Bids, that stuff. It seems like prices on everything have really softened in the last year, which is good for people who want to buy and use their cars. Maybe not so good for speculators. Maybe indicates that the couple years of pandemic buying spree was a bit of an aberration. And if you draw a straight line from 2019 to today, it's almost as if those years have sort of never happened in a lot of the curves. But you guys really work at the very high end. People who could spend whatever they wanted before and can spend whatever they want now. So how does that trend line look there?
In terms of, of just how it's been going over the last couple of years for us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, what does the curve look like at the very high end of car buying? Did it have a huge spike up in 2021, 2022, and now it has a drop off, or was it just sort of steady and out of that trend entirely, that trend spike?
It's, the last couple of years have been a couple of our best in company history. There's always those cars that come in waves that all of a sudden one sells for a bunch of money, and then people throw out similar cars and you catch it for a little longer, that they bring these big prices, whether it's for 2 auctions, 6 months, 18 months, and then it kind of slows down a bit. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that, but on the true high end, it's a finite group of people, but it still seems to be going upwards. There's things like an F40, I would say, are softening. They had a spike and they were bringing crazy money for a little bit, or maybe F50s too. And okay, whoever wanted to pay X for one got one. You get lesser cars that come out and they're trying to, get a little extra for them. And, once things start no sailing, then, everything slows down a little bit. But, I would say, you made a good analogy, 2019 to today. Like, there's probably a lot of what's selling is very similar, but there's still certain segments of the market that continue to go up for us, or that I see anyways.
What do you see as some good examples of cars that are undervalued and some that are overvalued? Again, your personal opinion only. We're not holding you to all of it. But have you seen anything where you're like, man, these in general, like, I still think early Diablos are undervalued. They're actually quite rare. They don't change hands a lot, but compared to a Countach or a late Diablo, they're surprisingly cheap. So that's one that I think early Diablos are undervalued. Now, they're not my favorite Lamborghini, but still, just given how they look, the fact that they're V12 manual transmission Lambos and they're very rare, that should really get you a bunch of the way there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what's popping in my head first, just as I was talking about it last week, of being, overvalued maybe a little bit. I mean, I made reference to F40s on the high end, but 964 Porsches, these 3.6s, like
Yeah.
they built a lot of them, and in my mind, they're still bringing a lot of money. It's hard for me to understand when they built 1,800 of them, how they're still $400,000 and $500,000 kind of cars. There's a lot of Porsches in general that still seem to be doing really strong. The late model stuff, we did a sale in Houston, Texas, 1st of December. And, a lot of it was very rare stuff, but, brought really strong money. And, a lot of it is mileage dependent or originality dependent. But, it seems like how long can it kind of keep going the way it's going?
Do you think it's because those cars are very usable? I mean, you can buy even a very high performance air cooled Porsche like a 964 Turbo S or a Turbo 3.6, and you can drive it pretty much like it's a regular car if you want. It's not going to be an enormous pain in the ass to deal with. Do you think that has something to do with it, or do you think there's just this perceived rarity and sort of hype that drives it?
Hype maybe is probably how I would think about it more. They're definitely something to drive. They just, when a lot of cars and values come down to obviously condition, mileage, and rarity. And, when they built a lot of a certain car, it's different when they built, 100 or 200, but, even F40s, and they built 1,400 of them. Now out of the 1,400, there's, you could start trimming it down to which are the best ones and what years, and a lot that have been driven and aren't qualified as good cars, been repainted, had damage done, that kind of stuff. So it really starts zeroing down to the really great stuff. But, at the end of the day, they still built a lot of them. When you get into cars that they built a couple hundred of, or 50 of, or 10 of, then I can, kind of start understanding the value that they bring. But, when they built thousands of them, it just seems, kind of like it's going through a moment right now.
Well, that's what our friend Doug DeMuro talks about a lot, with sort of the market cap of cars. For an F40, if you multiply the average value of one by the number they built, the F40 does seem overvalued because they did build, relatively speaking, a lot of them compared to F50, which they built like a quarter of what they did with that. And so F50s they're pretty crazy, because they went from 500 grand to 5 million, it seems like, overnight. I wonder, why do you think people all of a sudden realized that F50s were undervalued by a factor of 10? Pretty crazy with that car.
I think you could talk about all those, the Enzo, the 288, the F40. As soon as one of them kind of brings a surprising number, instantly, okay, F40s or F50s, the market just went up to whatever it is, $1.5 million, $2 million. But then that people are like, okay, well, my F40 that they built X amount of should be worth, they pull each other up, right? As soon as one brings a premium price, then, the others start to follow.
Yeah.
Enzos right now are, $3.5-4 million, and
that to me seems like way too much money. Once you get into paddle shifters, there's no I'm out. That's not a $3 million. An early F1 gearbox, that is not I don't care how rare it is, that is not a $3 million driving experience.
I'd rather jump to Koenigsegg or something.
Yeah, I mean, if that for that much money, I need to be driving a stick, or I need to be going 300 miles an hour. Like something real crazy. But yeah, we have an F50 from your Amelia auction this year for 5.065 million. Yeah, big money for the F50s. I think those are. I wouldn't say the F50 is overvalued per se. It is rare. I happen to think they look great. You do have that direct connection to Formula One technology. I drove one once. It was very awesome. It was very fucking awesome. So I kind of get that one. But the F40 being half of that when they made 4 times as much, that seems overpriced.
Maybe it's just a generational thing. Like, for
Could
whatever
be.
reason, the F40 captured us and people slightly older than us. And it just grabbed us at the right time, and that's the special car, and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
It has
it's the
story.
craziest version of that 80s formula that goes back to the 308.
And I think it's unique in that. And I think in the 90s when you had the F50 come out, then you had more supercars, you had more competition, you had, XJ220 and whatnot. Different cars, totally.
Yeah.
But I think there were just more fish in the pond.
Yeah. Oh,
It's a weird sound.
you there, Gord?
Yeah.
Oh, we got a little,
Yep,
just
yep.
a little, we got a little staticky there.
No.
So speaking of 80s and 90s cars, they're getting they're having their day, right? People in their 40s, late 40s into their 50s are now spending money on stuff from their youth. You've got guys like John Tamarian down at Curated in Miami just killing it with these manual transmission supercars. Do you think this is a curve that still has legs in it?
Yeah, because it's guys my age, your age, that are just starting to become successful, or their business is getting to a certain point. Like, I'm going to say, not even 40, let's say 45 to 55-year-olds, right? Where they're going to have the liquidity to go out and buy some of the stuff that they wanted when they were a kid. So I definitely think that has, a ways to go. I look at, will I ever be able to afford X or Y? And, even if it's a stretch now, I'm like, well, how much further can it go? But if I look back 20 years, I'm like, well, there's so much stuff I can look at 20 years ago that I'm like, man, was that cheap, right? A
Yeah.
300 SL Roadster or something, right? Like, oh, I'd love to buy one of those. Well, they were 180 grand and now they're $1 million. So I'm just curious what 20 years from now, what an F40 will end up being, and I do think that is one of the most iconic cars of our generation, at least on the Ferrari side of things, that they're always going to be, super desirable. But it's hard to say, like, where is the ceiling or how much can it go? But, Tamarian Curated, the stuff that he does, like, there's going to be a huge appetite for that kind of stuff, continuing to go forward. And, when the rarer stuff comes out, then you're going to see these anomalies in the market where things bring, crazy money because of, you never knew they built, whatever the car is in this one-off color.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden it's like, they start drawing further premiums. But I can see, me wanting that kind of stuff, into the future. All
Yeah.
the things that, I used to play with when I was a kid.
Do you think we can look at the curves of the Miura and the 300 SL and stuff from the 60s, the front engine Ferraris, and look at those curves where they went from a couple $100,000 to, 7 figures, but then when they got there, they sort of stayed. There's not, through Gull Wings and stuff got to $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million, and they sort of stayed. Miura's, got to the high 1, low 2 millions, and then they sort of stayed there. Do you think that that's what we can sort of expect from the stuff in the 80s and 90s as well? Is that curve where they get to a point where it's sort of a saturated valuation, and then they just kind of, that's where they are forever?
I don't know if it's saturated. It's probably more like they just got discovered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then they need to get to a certain level where, okay, this is, I guess, where they should have been, right? It just took longer to get there. So yeah, for sure you can see it. I guess it's everybody's scared to, pay too much for the first, example of X, let's say. But we just don't know how much they're going to grow, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like you need to be buying, not scared of it could go down. You're buying it because you're like, I want this. I want this car. I've always wanted one of these, and then I guess we sit and wait to see, how far does it go? Where does it, settle out? That kind of stuff. But um, you know, there's nothing I would buy on a speculation basis because you can get caught up in that real quick, and then the bottom drops out, and if it's a car you never liked, you're not happy with yourself.
Yeah, you definitely should not buy a car that you don't love for the purposes of making money. That's not a good idea at all. There's a lot of ways there's a lot of pretty safe ways to make money by investing money in something that don't have the cost of maintaining and storing and dealing with a car if you don't love the car. If you love it's got to start with loving the car, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you see? So, you mentioned before, and I talk about it a lot, there's like this sort of 25-year sort of curve where stuff that people wanted in high school couldn't afford, they come into some success in business or whatever, earn their fortune, and then they start buying it, right? So you've got Countach's and F40s, and then you've also got BMW M cars from the early 2000s. You've got Skylines, which we're going to be talking about later today, and sort of the early video game era cars. Is that 25-year curve, now that cars are the new stuff that's coming out today has more computer control, paddle shift automatic gearboxes, and a lot of that. Do you think that 25-year sort of demand curve will continue, or do you think it might freeze in time a bit with the sort of manual transmission era coming to an end?
I think it'll be hard to say. I look at these modern hypercars that we sell. We just sold a McLaren Speedtail in Arizona, and in my mind, they're a pain in the ass to look after. The charging systems for them, and the hybrid system, and the having the proper plugs, and you can't go without a couple days of it being charged. 918s, like I don't know how that stuff's going to age. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Like personally, I don't want to own any of those. I mean, Enzo's about as new as I would go if I was building my dream car collection, but all the stuff that needs to get plugged in, I'd be real scared of just, what happens when things start going wrong on them. Who's going to fix them? How much is it going to cost? Are the parts going to be available? And I don't know what that era of car will, end up doing in the future. I think there'll be, can be nightmares to kind of look after. And, I'm talking not when they're 5 years old, but think about them when they're 20 years old.
Yeah, for sure. Would make me. I have no desire to own any type of vintage hybrid. That's not a desirable. Yeah. I won't even. I don't even want a sports car with paddle shifters. I mean, if you're talking about what am I spending money on for my collection, it is 100% manual transmission cars. I trust myself to not blow a clutch. I want to engage with machinery in a productive way. That's why I buy these types of cars. So for me, anything with a dual clutch or a paddle shifted gearbox is pretty much out. We drive them for work and they're fun, but I don't have a desire to own any of that. And I'm not sure I guess if my knees explode and I can no longer use a clutch, maybe that would change my taste. But I don't see that changing as I grow up. But, a lot of the young, here in Los Angeles where we live, there's a lot of what you might call young money. And they're buying cars that are paddle shifted. So I think there may be they may not be as tied to it as people like me at 42 years old are,
Yeah, we're the same age. They don't know what it's like. We have a young guy that works for us right now. I think he's 22, 23, car fanatic. I'm trying to teach him about vintage stuff, but if it's a Pagani, if it's a Koenigsegg, if it's a new whatever, he is just like losing his mind over it. We went to Pebble Beach and we're trying to drive up 17-mile drive, and he's taking pictures on his phone from the back seat of a car going the other way, and I'm like, what's the point of that picture? Like, you can barely see sitting in the back seat of my car. But and he'll rhyme off, oh, that's the XYZ model, or he knows who owns it because of social media. It's crazy. So I think of, okay, guys his age, when they get older, like, he'd go crazy for that kind of stuff. I don't know if he's going to be into an F40 or into a SV Mura, right?
Yeah.
So it's that generation that I guess is 20 years younger than us that, I mean, time's going to tell, and whatever, I'll be in my 60s at that point, and we'll just, we'll have another discussion about it in 20 years from now.
Well, and I think the way they learn about those cars is different than the way that we learned about, the other, like, when I first saw an F40, it was in a comparison test in, Road and Track magazine, and I'm memorizing the stats and whatever. And when they first see this kind of car, it's on someone's Instagram page, and they can then follow the person who owns that car and see what they do with it. And it's weird. They may actually, it may go the opposite way of we think. They may know the provenance of that car because they end up following this guy who owns this car on Instagram for like 20 years. They may know every single thing that this person has done with this car, and they may become more experts about that than you or I would be about the stats of an F40 or an F50 or production numbers. They may be able to identify those individual cars and know their entire history. Which would be interesting.
Yeah, the access to information, for us, we had to go to the newsstand and buy the latest magazine, where for them it's constant, it's every day, it's all day. If they want to learn, follow, see, I go into Monterey now when we have our auction as an example, and when we're unloading the trucks, when our cars are coming in, the amount of young kids, I'll call them, that are sitting there waiting for us to unload the Zonda or the whatever it is that we've got on the truck that's coming off, like, that didn't exist 10 years ago. So it's like, crowds of kids, or they're waiting for the guy to drive his McLaren F1 into the, hotel to check in or something like that. Like, it's just, funny how it developed, and it's only made the, this industry bigger and bigger. There's more, gearheads, car people out there today than there's ever been, because it's just easier to see it all.
Yeah. Not that this is a part of your job, but as an enthusiast, though, does it concern you that there are more and more 7-figure cars to buy new every year, and fewer sports cars that are under $100,000 every single year? As content creators who traffic in affordable sports cars, it's very, very frustrating for us because there's less stuff to film. People come to us for consumer advice, and what's the best car I can get for $50,000, and that there's only like 5 cars that are good that you can buy for under $50,000, new anyway. And so does that sort of bum you out as an enthusiast, or because you work at RM and are selling at the high end, that it's actually better for you guys because you've got more things to fill your auctions with?
There's a lot more 7-figure new cars coming out. I mean, nothing is cheap anymore. I drive an F-150 pickup, and it's, like a $90,000 truck today, right? It used to be it's a pickup truck. Yeah. So I don't know what a Mustang GT, a new one, costs today, but
like 50s for that. If you maybe knocking on the door of 60 if you want the performance pack. Dark Horse is 70s, low 70s. Yeah. They're expensive.
It's just the way it's going. I guess our parents would have talked the same way when a car used to be $3,000 and they went to $40,000 over their lifetime or something like that, right?
But still we're not just talking about inflation. I mean, there once was Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Porsche, and then maybe some other weird outliers. And now with Koenigsegg, with Pagani, I went to the Quail last year, and it was absurd. I mean, it was just the number of cars that have 1,400 horsepower and carbon monocoques, and they're $5 million, and and the place is packed full of people that are. I mean, it just kind of. I'm happy that those kinds of cars exist, but it bums me out that it feels like it's at the expense of affordable stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like that's a segment of the market that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Yeah.
With the options, the one-off stuff you could do to a car, and then a Pagani or even Bugatti's doing an excellent job of, all the new stuff they're coming out with. And people love, I don't know if Ferrari started TaylorMade or Special Wishes was Porsche, but, people love designing their own cars today. And at the super high end, I guess it's, probably between Bugatti and, Pagani. I think 1,400 horsepower is like, not needed. I don't understand that side of it other than bragging rights to whoever bought, the Pagani from 3 years ago. It's only 1,200 horsepower and you got the 1,400 horsepower, but yeah. I don't even know if you could tell the difference driving them, and nobody is going to drive them hardly anybody is going to drive them at, the way that they're designed for, but I don't know. It's got to be bragging rights for that kind of stuff. I just think it's anything over 650, 700 horsepower, is unnecessary in my mind, other than to tell your buddies.
Yeah. Just to circle back, you mentioned that you thought F40s might be overvalued, and I agree with you. Is there anything that you've seen in the last few auctions that you think is still undervalued? Something where they regularly go for prices where you go, man, why is this one not popped yet?
Yeah. As you were talking earlier, I'm trying to go through my brain. I mean, 220 Jag popped up just because you referenced it. That they built 281 of them, 282, something like that. Like that seems like a car in my mind that, someday is going to be $1 million. Sure. I know it's a Jaguar. It's not a Ferrari. It's not a Bugatti, but that's one that still has, legs left in it in my mind. Trying to think, I almost need to be at the auction, and that's when I'm kind of thinking about that car looks cheap, or, why hasn't that one kind of taken off yet? I honestly can't think off the top of my head of another example of something that I think's super undervalued at this point.
I think I'll throw it out there. I think Ferrari later 348s are undervalued. The 94s specifically, because they're actually quite nice to drive and own once they made those improvements. And I still think 355s, the really good ones, are undervalued. I think they're so pretty, they sound so good, they drive so nice. I know they're expensive as shit to maintain, but that's a classic Ferrari experience. I like this 348 Spider Zach's got up right now, 86,000 euro. Actually, I think that's a pretty good deal. I don't know what the miles are or anything on this, but this one, the updates happened in 93 in Europe and 94 for American cars. So this would have had all the updates, and it's probably a very nice car to drive.
It's 92,000 USD. For
yeah,
reference.
I think that's a great buy to get into a classic Ferrari in today's market. Actually, scroll down. How many miles are on this one? Does it say? 13,000 kilometers? What a buy. That's an unbelievable buy for a 348. That's like nothing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Man, stole that one in
What's
Paris.
a 355 right now? Are they 200 grand for the same kind of mileage?
Same
maybe
car.
even more.
If that was a yellow 95 355 Spider with that miles, that's going to be. It's got to be knocking on the door at 200. It's got to be almost at least almost double. And
And
340.
the later ones are more desirable.
Yeah.
Like 98 or 99. Yeah.
Unless it's like an early pre-airbag Berlinetta from Europe. People like the non-airbag cars because the three-spoke steering wheel does look better. Those transitional airbag steering wheels kind of suck, but I get it. It's funny how having an airbag is a point against when the car gets old enough.
So here's a Spider from RM.
Oh, here we go. What's this from?
years
Here's a
ago.
99 Spider. $212,000 from Monterey last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Killer colors.
That
Like
is a
the
good
colors.
color. That's TDF
drive,
blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Colors drive the
Colors
market.
drive. Yeah.
But
That's-
similar miles. This one has 7,999 miles. So that's basically the same as the other one. So yeah, just over double. If it was yellow, I'd think you maybe knock a little bit of money off. The blue tan is pretty classy, whereas yellow is definitely not for everybody. But on a 355, I think more people would go for yellow than you'd think. But the power top on a 355.
I don't know if that was a
scares me.
stick.
Oh, I don't know.
You know, the sticks still bring more value. I
Oh,
can't remember
way
if the
more.
Monterey
Yes.
car was.
Manual.
This is a manual, yeah.
Yeah.
The sticks are like double. Nobody wants an a 355 F1, and for good reason. They drive like garbage.
But the question, so 355 is almost the same price as this 575 Maranello manual.
Oh,
That is interesting to me.
I would personally, as great as the 355 is, I'd rather have a manual 575 all day. I would drive that everywhere.
This is one of 177
Yeah.
that are left-hand drive.
My client has a 575 manual in Tour de France blue. You've seen it.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
It's
perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I told him it's got like 20,000 miles on it. And I said, if you ever want out of this thing, I will find a way.
This is wild. There's 20. They made 2,600 of the 355 Spider manuals.
Yeah.
And
So much more. The market cap math does not work compared to the 575 manual there. 575 manual is what's up.
you want to buy this together?
That is awesome. 220,000 euro.
Yeah.
Oh, this is asking. This was.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. What did this go for? Was this a no sale, Gord? Because this is Paris 2024, and this is asking.
We must have then. We had a Super America as well that I think we missed on. So we must have missed on that one as well.
Okay. I like the Barchettas as well. I like when they commit to no roof at all. That's a good look for me. Oh, there's a Super America. Yeah, 600K no sale. Woof. Big money for one of those.
Stick shift car they built.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
a
if it's
stick?
43 total or
Yeah, 43
that's why it's-
6-speed. Wow, 15,000 kilometers. Oh man, that's a heavy hitter right there. I personally would not pay the premium for that. I'd rather go with a third of the money for the 575 with a stick. I don't need the Targa roof on this one, but I get it. That's rare, and that's very cool. And was Super
sold-
America the electrochromic roof? I think it had that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. We sold
Yeah.
what?
We did a sale in New York City in December, of 23, and we sold a Super America stick, killer colors, and we sold a 575 manual as well. And they were like, off memory, it was probably like 750 all in for the manual Super America, and I think the 575 brought, I think it was a little over 320 or something.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
So
that's
that's
a
what
lot of
they're
money for one of
worth
those,
in the
but that's
US.
lovely. That's just such a nice drive. Such a nice driving experience. That car, that's a keeper for sure. 550 is also a good 550 with a manual. Still underappreciated.
Totally.
Throw a Tubi style exhaust on that thing.
And suspension. And,
That's right there.
Yeah.
That's right there. Yeah, JRZ would probably have like a nice setup for you, or like Olin's or something on one of those. I'm not talking lower it. I'm talking sharpen.
Yeah, sharpen.
Yeah, just a delight. That's cool. So what is in the Gord Duff collection? Anything going on in your garage right now?
I have a 66 Shelby, a GT350 that I've had for like 12 years.
Okay.
Love that. That's like, I'm going to die with that car. That'll be the last thing to kind of leave my place.
Uh-huh.
I have a 2015 GT350,
Oh,
so a
okay.
modern one. And that's what I mean by, it's 560 horsepower. Like, I don't need to drive anything faster than that. I think that's plenty fast and can get me into lots of trouble. And then I have a Lincoln convertible, like a 62 with suicide doors that
Oh, like
again,
from Entourage.
take out with my family. Yeah, it's white
Yeah.
though, but yeah, same thing.
Those are pretty rad. I like this collection. That's a pretty strong collection there. That's a good. So you're a Ford Motor Company guy, but being from near Detroit, I'm not surprised.
My dad was a Ford guy. He had a Ford dealership at one point. But yeah, I drive a Ford pickup, but I like lots of other stuff, but I'm never going to own a Corvette, never going to own a Camaro. I can appreciate them and stuff, but yeah.
All right, I'm with that. We have some Patreon questions for this topic from our patrons. Of course, if you want to ask questions for the podcast, patreon.com/thesmokingtirepodcast, and let's get to them. We don't have a lot of billionaires who listen to the show, although there are two that I know of, and you know who they are as well. But most people ask questions about regular cars, and so Bad Gardener says, I'm a middle school teacher. Example A. What would be the best car to see your teacher roll up in under $40K? No considerations besides middle school curb appeal in this hypothetical. I'm picturing Billy Madison in the Screaming Chicken Trans Am.
Like, REO Speedwagon.
blasting REO Speedwagon.
I was going to say like a Fox Body Mustang.
That was actually my
Convertible.
first guess. My first move would be Fox Body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fox Bodies are getting to the point now where people are willing to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for a great one that's not a Cobra. Like a really good LX notchback, a really good one, not a Celine, not a Cobra, a great one that doesn't have any stories is like a $30,000 to $40,000 car now. And a good one, a clean one with mods is like a $20,000 car now. People are willing to get the Fox Body they always wanted. Yeah.
I think like a Lotus Elise or something. Something where the kid's like, what is that? Because it's mid-engine, looks exotic, but it's not. You can't afford a Ferrari at $40,000.
Yeah.
It's like a Mondial.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that.
I had
Even a Lotus Esprit.
Esprits. Yeah.
Like they're still expensive.
Yes.
Like they're more like 50, 60 grand. Acura NSX, those are super cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can.
40 grand is getting you a 91
grand.
automatic. It's getting you one you probably don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy I have an NSX, Gord, and the guy who I bought it off of, he sold it to me and then turned around and bought another one like 2 weeks later. Same year in a different color. Mine's an 05 silver. He sold it and bought an 05 blue because he really wanted the blue, which I don't blame him. It's gorgeous and it's rare. And then, shout out to Tony, he then bought like a 98 automatic to daily. And he just hit me up like, thinking of putting a supercharger on this. I was like, don't bother putting a blower on your automatic NSX. Just beat the shit out of it and throw it away when you're done. Automatic NSX
Those are a cool
would be a
car.
fun one. Oh, they're great. And
Like is yours got flip up headlights or is it
no, fixed. Mine's a fixed light car.
fixed?
Yeah,
Yeah,
02
I
to
like
05 fixed light. I don't get on either side of the headlight debate. I know that people are pretty adamant about one or the other. To me, it's more about the extra torque of the bigger displacement engine, the sixth gear, which you get in the later cars. The early ones were 5 speeds, the power steering, and '05 is the rarest year, so they only did 248 cars in '05. So '05s are particularly collectible, and more important than all of that is I genuinely love driving it. Immediately after this show, I'm going to get it because I put it on display for a party this weekend, and then there was an atmospheric river, and so I just left it over there, and I got to go get it.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean Stewart says, when clients are trying to sell a $3+ million car, that's sort of an arbitrary number, but a multi-million-dollar car, is there something different about the person who sends their car to auction versus the person who would rather do a quiet private sale out of public view? Is the selling strategy client-specific or specific to what works best for that car model historically?
I mean, we do private sales as well. I would say sometimes, most of the time, it might be driven by the owner of the car, where they're like, I just don't want it going to public auction. I don't maybe want the exposure because people will know that it's my car, or, the risk of it not selling at public auction. That's, a fear some people have. And then it's kind of, does it hurt the value of the car?
Plus, there's an expenses in it getting there and getting back, right? If you got to spend 50 grand to send it by air to Paris or whatever, to Pebble Beach, and then it doesn't sell, you got to get it home.
Yeah. We consistently are selling 90+% of our cars. So we're only taking cars in at prices we feel we can sell them for. So the risk of a no sale is, smaller selling with us versus maybe somewhere else where they're selling, 400 cars at an auction.
Sure.
But sometimes we'll suggest it to the client that this probably, maybe the market's very fine for the type of person that would want that car, that, hey, let's do something on the private sales side. Or maybe the history is a bit complicated, where it was in an accident or it had some, damage to the car. It takes somebody to really understand the car. And, I'll say like a D-type, for an example, comes to mind, right? There's great D-type Jaguars out there. And then there's ones that they got crashed, they got rolled over, they got busted apart, they got put back together. And, cars like that, there's Porsches of that era as well. But like, if it's got a bit of a complicated story, it might be a better thing to sell privately, where you have time to, get the right client that understands what the car is versus just kind of throwing it out at auction.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, there's a public no sale, particularly if it's a car that's so rare it can be linked back to one person, can definitely hurt your prospects of selling it privately later. I mean, if that's public, and then the next guy goes, well, I see that nobody was willing to pay $3 million for this, so I'm certainly not going to either.
That's what I'm going to do with that 575.
Yeah.
I know it was a no-go.
Yeah. Joe said, do you think the R34 Skyline and other JDM GTRs are going to have a price curve like Hemi Cudas in the early 2000s? I think they're different because those Hemi Cudas that got to really huge numbers, they built very, very few of those. I mean, I don't think people realize, because they look pretty similar to the other Hemi Cudas, but like and we make fun of them a lot because it's like, it's one of 4, this and that, but like it really was one of 4 in that combination. And Skylines, I think when you get to the M-Spec NUR, the very rare variants, those will be extremely valuable, and regular run-of-the-mill Skylines will be a fraction of that. What say you, Gord?
It's I like the cars. I don't know enough about them to comment like the different variants of them. I think after the 25-year rule, you're going to see, you know, a lot of them come over, and you're going to see kind of a surge in values for a little bit. But as you said, comparing them, I guess, against Hemis, like, they built a lot of them. So unless they're a rare color, a super low mileage ones, I'm assuming lots of them got driven and lots of them have miles on them.
Yeah.
So it's going to, I think when it opens up, I guess, a little more, it's going to take a while to really see where the level's going to be, because I think a lot of, I'll say junk in a nice word, but, you know, stuff's just going to come out, and it's going to take people to get educated to start understanding, you know, whatever, original paint, or were motors replaced under warranty, or all those kind of things that maybe people aren't thinking about, you know, with that segment of car. But yeah.
One thing that's very interesting about Skylines, and we're going to have our next show, for those listening live today, it's going to be in 4 hours. For those listening not live, it's the show that's going to air after this, with Ryan Zumalin, who literally wrote a book about the Skyline GTR. So we're going to be doing an hour and a half of Skyline-only radio after this. So if this answer is not satisfactory, stay tuned. But one thing I will add is that Skylines, interestingly, high quality, well chosen modifications do not negatively affect the value of a Skyline. Not everybody is looking for a Skyline that is as close to stock as possible, even if they're spending $300,000 or $400,000, which is an interesting thing about that.
It was just a cultural shift.
Yeah.
For reference, they only made 652 1970 Hemi Cudas. But for Skylines for R34 generation alone, they made 11,578.
Yeah,
and that's including all the different special.
Yeah, and some of those Hemi Cudas are automatic, and some are 4-speed, and some are convertible, and some are, and there's, you know, and so you can break it down. It's probably there's probably single digit of one color 4-speed convertible.
They made 14 1970 Hemi Cuda convertibles.
Yeah, I mean, so there's fewer of those than fucking GTOs. You know, like, so yeah, that's why some of those, and not every Hemi Cuda is enormous money, but yeah. Let's see. Let's Drive It says, for Gord, what is a car popular among general enthusiasts, but it's difficult to find an actual buyer or market for at auction? That's an interesting question. A car that seems popular but has fewer buyers than you might think. That's an interesting thought exercise. Not sure I know.
I mean, it's all dependent on price. That's what it comes down to. Man, just trying to think of something we've no-sailed recently. You know, we missed on a Ford GT, like a 2019.
Oh, a modern one.
Ford GT, and like you would, you know, I see them all the time on Bring a Trailer. They don't sell every time, but you see lots of them. But you'd think there's lots of people out there for one of those, and then when we kind of miss on one, you know, it's just surprising that there was nobody that maybe they didn't want to pay $1 million, but did they want to pay 950, 900? Like, where they're just, there was nobody wanting one this weekend, and it seems like such a common car, and you know, you see lots of them for sale.
Yeah,
And
actually, you said nobody wanting one this weekend. The second part of this person's question is, what planning goes into deciding what venue to offer a specific car at? Is there, well, this car may not have a big following in Paris, but if we do it in Monterey, it'll be a hit.
Yeah, again, like one of the other questions, it can be driven by the owner, where they're like, I'm going to Florida on vacation. I want to sell my car at your Miami sale. That's where I want to take it to. And, you know, as long as it's priced appropriately, I mean, I feel we can sell, for the most part, any car anywhere, just because of the reach we have. And if people really want to buy a Ferrari Dino, they're going to be on the phone, they're going to be online, or they're going to show up at the auction. There's other things that I'll be like, Monterey's better, global audience, everybody's coming from Europe. Maybe it's a car that they feel would do good in Europe, but they don't want to ship it there. Okay, Monterey's the place because a lot of the Europeans will come over for that auction. But again, it's more on the consignor. If they have a timing issue, they want to sell it in March because they want to buy something else in July,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
And we have a few sales. We do one in Hershey, Pennsylvania, that's geared toward early cars, like 30s and older. So if some guy wants to sell a 1910 Oldsmobile, we're not taking it to Miami, or I'm not taking it to Monterey. I'm like, Hershey's the place to take it because everybody that wants cars of this era goes there, right? So it's a specific market for it.
Brass era and Miami are two things that don't go together. Like, nobody's buying brass era shit in Miami, dude. Nobody. That's funny. All right, before we get out of here, one last one. Forrest Casey says, ask Gord to share the story of winning Pebble Beach with the Fagoni Duesenberg. That is a good story.
So we won with Pebble 22 with this Duesenberg. It was a one-off Fagoni bodied car. Short story is I had a client come to me that loved Duesenbergs to start with, but wanted a car that he could go, possibly win Pebble Beach with, or have an opportunity or a shot at doing that. So I started looking around and knew he liked Duesenbergs, and it's like, okay, pull up the list of the top ones in the world, start going down the list of, can you even buy them? Are they for sale? Could you, start calling around? And this is with Rob Myers and I, and we kept coming back to this one car that it got broken apart in the 70s, where like the original chassis had a fake body put on it. The original body got put on another chassis. So one car got turned into two, and they were with one person on the West Coast, one person on the East Coast. And we decided like, okay, we're going to go after these two cars and put them back to one. So we ended up buying the one on the West Coast, and 2 months later, we're able to secure the one on the East Coast, brought him to our shop, and over, a 2-year period, we ended up restoring it all back to original. And then we found out the motor wasn't original in the car, so we had to go track that down, and we found it in a car in Vancouver. And I did a deal with the owner of that car. We needed the crankshaft. So it's not the block. It's just a piece inside the motor that nobody can see, but it's got stampings on it. We ended up doing a deal to have him pull the engine out of the car, ship it to Detroit. We pull out the crank we need. We give him the other crank. We do some work on his motor for him so that we could make our car 100% pure everything.
Was that owner's car
that was
in very nice condition? I feel like you just approached a 7-figure vehicle and you're like, can I turn your car into a pick and pull?
Yeah.
For the motor?
Yeah. For the crank, was the car that had that crankshaft like a really nice car, and you asking to pull it apart? Wow.
It was a nice car, and I asked if we could, basically take a piece out of your engine, and what would that cost me to do? So we came to an agreement, but we needed it to get our car to be as pure as possible if we wanted to have a shot. And we ended up doing it.
Did you end up with enough parts after that to build another car? Because if you got the chassis, the original chassis and the original body, both of which were attached to other cars, were you then able to make a car with the leftover parts that would still be like a nice driver for somebody? Or was the rest of that stuff just like throwaway?
That's his daily now.
Yeah.
I didn't want the second car to exist anymore, right?
Okay.
The value and everything is in this car. But what I did was...
That's true. You have the opportunity to make one less Duesenberg, which brings up the value of all the other Duesenbergs. Yeah, that's funny.
The client owns a few of them, and what I did in his museum, I said, let's take the other chassis and let's make it a show chassis. So there's a Duesenberg book that shows a picture of just a chassis with the running gear in it. So I copied it exactly. So we painted the frame bright red. I made it look like, the outside of a car, smoothed it all out, made it beautiful. And we restored the chassis, the motor, the firewall. And we just bolted a seat on it. But within his museum, you can see, this Duesenberg that won Pebble Beach, and then right next to it, you can see what is underneath the body of a Duesenberg, which is
that's
this
pretty cool.
beautiful chassis. So that's what
Leno's got a chassis.
the leftover.
Leno's
Yep.
got a full running driving chassis that he drove to Cars and Coffee once, which was very, very dangerous.
This kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Very fun.
That's what we did. That was another reference, right? We had a seat just like that. It's got taillights, it's got headlights, but ours is got a red chassis as opposed to a
that one's
green
red.
chassis.
Second row down in the middle. Is that red? Isn't that one red?
No, this is
It's not?
silver and gray.
Oh, it's silver. Yeah. Sorry, colorblind. It looked red for a minute. But that's basically it. It's a ladder frame with an engine, a steering wheel, and a seat. It's pretty cool, actually. Probably a good time to drive around.
It keeps the center of gravity low.
Yeah. So you had to take apart 3 cars to make 1 car. You got to have a hell of a fucking Rolodex to make that happen, man.
Yeah.
That's challenging.
You got lots of friends, right? Over the course of 25 years, like to find the engine, I had 2 of my buddies that I get a text message one day. We're trying to track it down, and we knew it was in a certain type of car, so we're start knocking on doors. And then one day I get a text message, and I look at my phone, and it's a picture looking through the side of the block at this number. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I should know it, but it was that crank. So, I call my buddy up and I'm like, where is this? And he's like, it's in Western Canada. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I got to call this guy. Like, we got to figure this out. So, and thankful to him, he was like willing to participate to preserve history in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's the process, and I've heard other stories from other people about finding an engine that had been separated from a car. That seems challenging because with a Duesenberg, it's probably not to undermine your story, but like there are very few Duesenbergs. But like if it's a Ferrari motor or something where there's several hundred or a couple thousand of them, or a car engine out of a muscle car or something, it seems like you have no idea where this thing has gone at this point.
Muscle cars would be super challenging, even Ferraris. Like we sell, not all the time, but we just sold a car and the transmission wasn't original in the car, but we know where the car is, who owns it with the original transmission, and it's a direct swap. So, the new buyer, we're going to see if we can put a deal together to like swap them over.
Like, why would this car not have the original transmission? Like, he blew it and then someone bought it and had it rebuilt to put in their car? Like, who takes the transmission out of a Ferrari and then who buys it and puts it in another Ferrari? That's weird.
It's hard to say. Sometimes the same guy owned both cars, and he's racing it, or one of them breaks, and for whatever reason it gets swapped over. Like it. Yeah, I don't know how some of this stuff happens, but it does, and yeah, if you can go out and match some stuff up, obviously, the more things that match, the better off the car is.
How interesting. So before we let you go, what's happening in Miami? Moda Miami. Tell us the deal.
Well, we have an auction down there that we're going to do over the course of 2 days, and we're doing a Concord down there as well. So just a concept that kind of, came to us after we were deciding to move out of Amelia Island, and, Miami's, it's an easy place for people to get to. It's direct flights from anywhere. There's, a lot of money down there. There's a lot of fashion. It's interesting that there hasn't been a significant show down there as of yet for the car culture and the amount of people that, live there. So, we're kind of branching out and trying something new.
And what are some of the heavy hitters that you've got on the block there? Zach's pulling up some images right now, but the website is loading slowly.
Yeah, for the auction, it'll be similar to what you might see out in Monterey or that you used to see previously to us in Amelia. Like, we have some great pre-war American European cars. We have some great 60s Ferraris that are coming, and then we have some modern hypercars. So it's a mixed bag of everything, but things that our clientele are used to seeing us sell.
Yeah, I'm into this blacked out 300 SL Roadster. That's lovely. We've got a yellow Lexus LFA Nürburgring. That's pretty cool. A DB4 convertible. That's lovely. Keep going. Oh, that Packard Deluxe 8 convertible. Oh, roof turbo R. Cool. 98 roof turbo R. I love that. That's excellent. Wow. Oh, look, a Gunther. What's the estimate on a Gunther? $1 million to $1.3 million for the gray Gunther. We love them. We just drove their turbo car. That's cool.
Yep.
Another LFA. Oh, yeah. Countach. All right, Countach 5000 QV, 88. That's an 88. Is that right?
It's got 800 miles on it.
So it's
800 kilometers.
So that's that is an 88. So it's the same year as mine. But 850 to 950. I like that. That's what's up. And then you've got this lovely, is that Blue Scoro 1981 Countach? That's a fantastic blue. That's beautiful.
Series 2 car.
Yeah.
So we have a good mix down there.
Oh,
so
I think that's the car
really good for us.
No, that's not the car we had stored here. You got an AMG 560 wide body. You've got a Honda NSXR. That's fantastic. Porsche Turbo 3.6. Yeah, you got some good stuff. I'm into that. All right, that's March 1st and 2nd?
That's right.
March 1st and 2nd in Miami. All right, check that out. Heavy hitters, bring your checkbooks, please. Thank you, Gord. This was interesting. Appreciate your time.
All right. I appreciate you having me on.
As Zach messes up the lower thirds at the very end of the story. All right. For the live people, come back at 2 o'clock today. We're talking to Ryan Zumalin, the author of Cult of GTR. It's going to be the All Skyline show. For everyone else, wait till our next scheduled program, and you'll get that. Patrons will get it ahead of time, as they always do. Thank you to our patrons for some good questions today. Thank you to Gord for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys later.